Hello, everyone. Hello. All right, thank you everyone for being here. This is our final proud reading. We're very proud to present the BFA readers who are going to be reading today. Before we get to that, I just want to make some quick announcements. On December 2nd, any makeup assignments are due, so please do get those to me. And on December 3rd, I would encourage you guys to go to Arts Ec at the Wolf Center. It's going to be a wonderful show. I'm pretty sure that the artists will appreciate it and be inspired. With that being said, just stay tuned. We look forward to presenting our readers to you, okay? Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, and welcome. Thanks for coming. I'm Jessica, and as you also said, this is our last proud, so it's sad, but it's going to be a good one. You got lots of gifts today, right? So tonight, some of our poems and stories may give you that gut punch feeling, that true tightening in your belly, right? That's the power of creative writing. With that in mind, I want to acknowledge content that includes suicide, gun violence, and child death. We also have magic. Tonight, we have BFA students who I've had the pleasure of working with for several years now. Taylor, Mallory, and John have all had me in poetry classes, even though John specifically has refused so far to put any poems in his thesis. And come back to this better genre. But tonight, we're starting with Taylor, a student and writer who is multi-genre. Taylor is from Marshallville, Ohio, a town that Google says, anyway, had a family story time tonight at the Green Branch Library. Oh no, it was today at 10:30 this morning, so we missed it. But tonight, we have story time with Taylor. Taylor writes prose, poetry, vispos, comics, and creates art that lets us all know she is a true creative. She's a fan of Alison Bechtel and describes her own work as character-driven. Tonight, we're going to hear a story that shows Taylor's ability to guide a reader without giving it all away. She balances intrigue with clarity. Tonight, while you sip hot chocolate, imagine yourself at a ski lodge, but pick your slope wisely, and please welcome Taylor.
Hi there, I'm Necko, and I'm going to read a short story from my thesis collection, which is focused on how relationships change and grow over time. And this story is from the category of friendship. Ski lift. On your mark, get set, go. Noelle dashed down the grizzly slope, racing against her fellow freshman friends. The icy snow was coarse, like rocky sand beneath their long skis and snowboards. It was an open, steep path bordered by blurs of pine trees. She halted to a sharp stop, spraying snow, and lifted her goggles onto her forehead and called, "I won," as the other four made their way down. "I would have won if all those little kids stayed out of my way," David boasted. "You probably didn't even know what skiing was when you were their age," Lindsay said. David sniffed the air. "I think it's time we get ourselves some chicken tenders." Noelle replied, "Let's wait for Becca. I think she fell." David said, "How about you wait while we get us a spot in line?" "See you inside," Noelle agreed. It was only a moment after David led Lindsay into a log when Becca reached the bottom. Becca's magenta winter coat easily stood out against crisp white snow. "Thanks for waiting on me. I suck at that slope, but it's still my favorite." "No problem," Noelle added. "Before dinner, I need to get a new pair of boots. These are too loose and I don't want to fall." "Sounds good. We can do that." "You don't have to wait on me," Noelle said. "The others are saving us a spot in the chicken line." "Please, I'm going with you." Noelle was ready to head towards the lodge. Then noticed Becca was huffing with her gloved hand on her chest. "Are you out of breath or something?" "Just a little, but I'm okay." Together, they trudged towards the doors of the ski lodge. 3 years later, Noelle intentionally sat across the aisle from Evan, a boy new to Pine Grove High School as of junior year, to avoid hearing David and Lindsay flirt the whole bus ride. After school on Monday, every winter, the club members rode to the ski resort. Noelle used her duffel bag as a pillow to lean against the frosted window, listening to a podcast. "Evan," David called out. His head popped up in front of Evan's seat. He was starting to grow a beard and wore a blue knitted hat. "What trail should we hit first?" "Let's do Outer Limits." "Fine by me," David approved, then added, "Tell headphones that's where we'll all meet." Evan looked across the aisle towards Noelle, who took out her left earpiece and said, "I heard." Evan tapped his fingers against his legs before piping up. "What are you listening to? You like true crime, right?" "Yeah, just another true crime podcast." "That's cool. What's it about?" he asked. Noelle perked up a bit and said, "Well, it's a series about small town cold cases from the 80s. This episode started talking about a missing persons case, but..." "Hey, Evan," Lindsay's head popped up this time. "David thinks he can do a full spin on one of the jumps." Evan let out a laugh and said, "Dude, it took you weeks to land a half spin. What are you thinking?" David challenged them to a bet about whether or not he could pull off the spin. Noelle couldn't get an opportunity to chime into the conversation, so she returned to her podcast. She sighed as she looked at the empty half of the bus seat where Becca used to sit. Eventually, the bus jerked into the parking lot of the ski lodge. Its angled roof was coated in snow and warm golden light spilled from its windows. Once inside, the others got ready quicker, so Noelle was last of the group geared up for the slopes. Tight boots over cabin socks, bulky white snow pants, a winter coat over a hoodie printed with the school's Bobcat mascot, 2 layers of gloves, shiny goggles, and a cap with a pom-pom on top. Her passholder card was safely zipped in her coat pocket. Outside, she stomped on her narrow skis and heard the click as they connected. Noelle watched groups of friends ski down the slopes together, laughing and creating small avalanches of snow. To find her friends, she made her trek to the blue square that Evan had chosen. Noelle couldn't remember the last time that David asked her what hill she wanted to do, but Becca would have cared, if only she was there. About a year and a half ago, Becca had a normal doctor's appointment before sophomore year. Here, she brought up instances of troubled breathing that she experienced since high school started. It was dismissed as an asthma symptom, but Becca's parents made her a follow-up appointment barely a month later. They were not convinced and had grown concerned about Becca's consistent lack of energy and appetite. One follow-up appointment turned into weekly appointments. Against Becca's assurance that everything was fine, Noelle worried and continued to do so when the appointment started to be held at the hospital, where they discovered that Becca had developed a chronic disease in her lung tissue. Noelle found herself constantly Googling treatments, as if she, a high school student with a B in biology, could find a solution that the experienced doctors couldn't. Becca missed more school when weekly hospital visits turned into periodic overnight stays. each bringing more bad news about her aggressive cancerous cells. When Becca wasn't in school, many students bombarded Noelle with questions about her best friend's condition. One night in May of their sophomore year, Noelle and Becca were on a video call. Noelle in her bedroom and Becca in the familiar hospital room, breathing oxygen through a tube in her nose. Rhythmic beeping of machines hummed in the background. Are you still supposed to be home this weekend? Lindsay invited us and some others over for an end of the year celebration or whatever, Noelle explained. I don't really want to go without you. Besides skiing, we barely ever hang out with her, so you definitely should go. And you'll go with me? Noelle leaned forward in anticipation. She watched Becca lean back in her hospital bed. You're still coming home on Thursday to go to the party with me, right? Actually, today the doctors told us I need to stay here full time for a while. There's just a lot going on. Wait, you're staying at the hospital? Noelle almost dropped her phone. For how long? Becca replied, don't know, but I think it'll be good. I get tired even walking up the stairs at home. I'll ask my mom if we can visit you tomorrow after school. And guess what? I'm taking my driver's test in 2 weeks. Then I'll be able to visit you more often. You're my favorite visitor. Becca smiled and showed off her silver braces before breaking out into a coughing fit. Now junior year, Noelle was planning to visit Becca after school on September 18th. Unlocking her car and tossing her backpack inside, she called her mom. Hey, I'm headed straight to the hospital today. I'll get dinner on my way home, so don't save me a plate. A pause. Then, I need you to come home right now. Noelle put the key in the ignition. She's barely been able to talk to me since last week. I'm going. Are you driving right now? Yeah, I'm pulling out of my spot. Noelle, her mom's voice rose over the phone. Please come home. It's about Becca. Noelle didn't visit the hospital that afternoon. In fact, she didn't visit it ever again. Becca was gone. A cold gust of winter wind jolted Noelle back to reality. It took her a moment to remember she was trying to catch up to David, Lindsay, and Evan on Outer Limits. Once Noelle caught up with the group, they proceeded to do many laps together. When they needed a break, they went inside the lodge for dinner. Lindsay sat across from Noelle and said, I can't believe this will be our second ski season since Becca passed, as she dipped her chicken tender into ketchup. Another guy offered his condolences to me earlier, Noelle replied. That's sweet. Lindsay pushed her blonde ponytail over her shoulder as she took a bite. Noelle only nodded. The whole school was filled with sympathy for Becca to the point where it got on Noelle's nerves. In her opinion, so many people were claiming to miss Becca at a time, yet barely cared to know her when she was alive. With a mouthful of food, David said, Noelle, I'm surprised you didn't stop skiing when Becca did. Lindsay said, why should she have to stop just because her best friend died? For once, David didn't have a response. Evan broke the uncomfortable silence and said, have you guys tried the honey mustard? It's the best. This caused a debate over which condiment was best for the chicken tenders. The conversation bored Noelle, so she stared out the window and picked out her fries for the rest of dinner. Ski Club wasn't as fun without Becca, but for whatever reason, week after week, she found herself following the group from lip to lip, slope to slope, chicken tender after chicken tender. Later that night, David decided the group would go to the terrain slope, knowing that if she opposed, they would go without her anyway, so Noelle tagged along. There were steep hills, rails, and tubes dotted along the wide slope. David led them to the start of the slope and looked down at the skiing below. The group waited on Lindsay to buckle her snowboard to her boots. Noelle said, I wish the snow wasn't so slushy. It makes for a softer fall at least, Lindsay replied. Just don't fall and you won't have to worry about anything, David said, punctuating his sentence with a laugh. Let's go, losers. Noelle reminded him, we're waiting on your girlfriend? David turned around and saw Evan help Lindsay stand up on her board. She brushed the wet snow off her backside and hopped towards the edge of the hill. David sped up to go down the slope with her, leaving Evan to go with Noelle. Evan said, looks like there's some nasty moguls at the bottom. Stay on the outside of the trowel and you should be fine. Thanks for the tip, but I've ridden on moguls before. Noelle looked towards the group of brown divots in the snow. My bad. Well, we gotta go now to catch up with them before they get on the lift. Evan started towards the edge. Noelle slid down the steep hill and punched low to gain more speed, like a roller coaster, and went up a bit before coming back down. Pelted by falling snow, her face stung in the brisk air, and her sweatshirt sleeves were uncomfortably rolled up under her bulky winter coat sleeves. Her arms were plastered to her sides, hands gripping her poles. She went side to side in order to slow her pace before reaching the deep moguls. She went along the sides, but her left leg flung upwards due to the slipperiness of the snow. Without time to position her body for a safe fall, she toppled backwards, briefly losing vision as the back of her head thumped against the ground. Her hands went instinctively to her throbbing head, now wet from the slushy snow, and she dropped her cold. Above the ringing in her ears, Noelle heard shouting and laughter from the next skiers, so she rolled away from the moguls and towards the side of the slope to avoid being hit, hand pressed against her head and shoulders feeling sore. Noelle hurriedly got up and slid to the bottom of the slope, where she saw her group in line for the chairlift. She stuck her poles in the ground and turned to go that way, and she was distracted by a small cry from behind her. A bit away from the base of the terrain slope, there was a little girl wearing a pink winter coat and fluffy earmuff near a patch of pine trees that dropped snow onto her shoulders. Her face, darting back and forth in desperation, was bright red from the falling temperature and tears. Noelle slid towards the distraught girl. "Are you okay? Did you fall?" Noelle asked, although she was skeptical that such a young kid would have even gone down the terrain slope. Maybe she cut through the pine trees and ended up here? The disoriented young girl darted her head back and forth. Her eyes were reddened and she kept poking the snow with her short ski poles. Noelle came a little closer and leaned down to better meet the girl's eye level. "Hey, it's all right. What's wrong?" "I can't find my dad." "Where did you see him last? Did he take you down this part of the hill?" "I think he took the chair up over there, but I don't know." She wiped her sniffling nose with her glove. Noelle looked towards the lift and saw her group was already making their way up the hill without her. She turned back. "How about I ride up with you and you look for him? I bet he's waiting for you at the top." The young girl nodded in agreement, and they slid over the snow to the chairlift, minus a few stops for the girl to catch her breath. Noelle understood how tiring skiing on flat ground could be for someone's torso and arms, because oftentimes Becca needed breaks too. When it was their turn for a lift, they stood at the boarding spot and let the nylon chair scoop them up from behind, like a shovel removing snow from a pathway. Sitting at opposite ends of the three-seater, they ascended and listened to the lift creak and shake with every bump on the wire. Noelle could see her group sharing a chairlift several rows ahead. "What does your dad look like?" The child answered, "Like me." Noelle brought a hand to her throbbing head as she asked, "My name is Noelle. What's yours? And how old are you?" "Rebecca. I'm 7.5. My best friend's name was Becca, too." Rebecca now faced Noelle and hit her skis with her poles repeatedly, creating a small thudding rhythm that mildly irritated Noelle's headache. Rebecca said, "I saw you with the girl in the blue coat. She looked like a blueberry." A small laugh escaped Noelle's lips. "No, that's Lindsay. Becca used to ski with me, though. We like Downdraft, the curvy blue square slope way over there." "Where is she? Did she get lost like me?" "No, she's not lost. She's up in heaven now." A nod. Then, in a curious voice, Rebecca asked, "Do you miss your friend?" "Of course," Noelle said, rubbing the back of her head again. "But missing her friends is normal. It can be lonely, but it's better that she's not in pain anymore." Rebecca clicked her skis together, causing a little pile of snow on them to wrinkle up. "Well, I'm not lonely because I have you to talk to. Do you have friends to talk to?" "Yeah, I have other friends besides Becca, like the girl in the blue coat that you saw." After feeling like she either lied to the kid or to herself, she went on. "They aren't the same as Becca, though." Rebecca tilted her head in confusion. Noelle explained, "Some friends wait for you to finish eating before they head back outside, or help you with homework as much as you help them, but others don't. Some ski with you because they actually want to, but others do because that's just what they're used to doing." "How do you know which friends are good friends?" "You can just tell, I guess," Noelle said. "My friend group has its ups and downs." She realized she was getting a bit too deep with the child and stopped there. "Like falling down the hills?" Rebecca pointed to a boy struggling to stand up on the terrain slope. He appeared to have fallen while attempting a trick. The skis kept slipping out from under him until someone, whether it be a friend or stranger, pulled him up. Noelle thought that she was overthinking the issues with her group and felt sure that if they had seen her, he would have gotten help, just like this boy did. "Yeah, something like that," Noelle replied as their chairlift reached the top and they hopped off it before it traveled back down. After not finding the child's dad at the top of the slope, Noelle decided they should get help from someone in the lodge. She figured she should get an ice pack for her head and shoulders too. Therefore, Noelle led Rebecca to Downdraft. It would be the most efficient way back to the lodge. Rebecca said, "Can you hold this on the way down so I don't lose it? There's a hole in my pocket." Noelle accepted and realized it was Rebecca's season pass card. Beneath her identification photo, the plastic card was decorated with stickers for her achievements from the ski lessons. There was a sticker for successfully riding a blue square, so Noelle felt more comfortable taking the young girl down the curvy blue square slope. Hunched low on her skis, Noelle led the way, reminded of how her and Becca loved to zoom down this same slope. Coming to a stop at the bottom, Noelle turned around to say something to Rebecca, but didn't see her. She couldn't even spot a pink coat coming down the hill or crash somewhere. Noelle shouted the child's name, and only the wind called in response. With her head pounding and the situation getting out of her control, she rushed to the lodge for help, leaving her skis in the slushy snow. Warmth surrounded her, and it made her feel clammy instead of welcome. She reached a wooden desk and told the receptionist about the missing dad and now missing daughter. Let's focus on the child first. What was she wearing? A pink, oh wait, she gave me her pass. Noelle yanked off her glove to retrieve the pass from her pocket. The curly-haired receptionist inspected it through round glasses before typing on her computer. It seems this name and ID number are not registered with our resort. She flipped the card over and then returned it to Noelle. But this is her card. Do you think there's a typo on it? No, I don't believe so. Where did you say you saw her last? The receptionist asked. I found her at the base of the terrain slope. I took her up the nearest chairlift to try and spot her dad from above. Then I took her on down track. Is she hurt somewhere on the hill? Noelle shook her head. I didn't find her crashed anywhere. It's like she disappeared. Seemingly from our systems too. The receptionist looked at her computer screen again before fiddling with the walkie-talkie. I'll tell the lift operators to keep an eye out and call security to look for your friend. Please tell me when you find her. After returning her boots and removing her heavy layers, wet from the snow, Noelle returned to the front desk. The receptionist did not have an update, but was able to find an ice pack. With a cold compress on the back of her head, Noelle perched on a bench by the window for the last hour of ski club, hoping to spot Rebecca as she listened to the crackling of the stone fireplace. Later, Lindsay's shrill voice called, Noelle, how's your head? From across the room. We saw you fall on the train slope. Noelle looked away from the large window for the first time to say, You did? Raising her eyebrows, she was about to say, Why did none of you help me up then? But instead asked aloud, Did you see me at the bottom of the slope? Nope, David said, warming his numb hands by the fireplace. Did anybody else see me? Did you see the girl I was with? She wore a pink coat. Evan replied, Oh good, you had someone to keep you company when you came inside. Noelle sat up straight now. When did you see me come inside? I haven't seen you guys in over an hour. Evan shrugged. No, I didn't see you reach the bottom. We assumed you went inside right after your fall on the moguls. Yeah, Lindsay chimed back in. We waited a minute for you, but you weren't even coming up the lift behind us. I wish you were there to see David spin off the rail. It was so cool. David put his arm around her, whisking the group away before Noelle could get answers. Quickly, Noelle said, That's nice, but I was on the lift only a few chairs behind you guys with a little kid. I'm sure of it. If you're so sure, then why are you asking us? Lindsay tilted her head to the side, making her ponytail sway, dismissing Noelle's troubles. Noelle heard their heavy footsteps leave the room and return their boots with the rest of the ski club kids coming in for the night. The bus would leave an hour before the resort closed, so there'd be no guarantee she'd see Rebecca come inside to return her own gear. Then again, how did she even rent out skis if she didn't own a valid pass? She also pondered why Rebecca's dad was near the train slope to begin with, if he was taking his young daughter skiing. Noelle's aching mind replayed their interactions again and again. She didn't even meet Rebecca after hitting her head. Noelle put her coat back on and shoved the ice pack in her pocket. She slung her duffel bag strap over her shoulder and went outside to board the bus back home. The chatter pounded her ears like snowballs. Her usual seat, across from Evan and diagonal from the couple, was open, but she walked past it. She noticed their eyes following her, but no one spoke up. In her new spot, Noelle retrieved her headphones from her bag and felt a thump on the seat beside her as she untangled them. It was Evan. He said, I know you prefer to sit alone, but I feel bad that we kind of ditched you tonight. Honestly, I'm used to it. Evan's hair was sweaty and matted from wearing a hat all night. He asked, Hey, is your head okay? I've had a headache all evening. That was my first rough fall in a long time. With a soft laugh, she added, Becca liked to joke that falling was her special move on the slopes. From what I've heard about Becca, she seemed really fun to hang out with, Evan said. Noelle scoffed. David and Lindsay actually said that. You've talked about her before. Noelle stopped messing with her headphones. You remembered? Evan said, By the way, if you don't want to ski with David and Lindsay next week, I'll ski with you. They kind of make me feel like a third wheel anyway. She said, Are you sure you would rather hang out with me? I don't really like the jumps and rails. Yeah, we can go on whatever slopes you like. It doesn't matter to me. Noelle debated for a moment, then nodded. During the ride, they discussed their favorite slopes at the ski resort, next moving on to the topic of school, such as what other groups they were involved in and who their least favorite teachers were. Evan also mentioned the podcast, so Noelle Noelle was able to finish explaining the premise to him. He seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say. Once the bus reached the high school, Noelle curiously reached into her pocket, but only found the ice pack and her own pass holder card inside. Thank you.
All right, our next reader is Mallory. Mallory is my poetry proud writer, although she did recently ask me to look at a flash piece. Mallory grew up in Middleburg Heights, Ohio, where you can find Lake Isaac, which is classified as a glacial pothole, but also reviewed as one of the prettiest lakes in the Cleveland area. Tonight, you'll hear poems that show Mallory's lyrical attention. One of her poems will ask, how futile are words? But Mallory's work knows how much every word matters. I've witnessed her change the word crooked to twisted to mangled or gnarled before settling on the final meandering. But Mallory does still work to balance the lyrical and narrative. She is a writer who really works for the best first line and the best last line, thinking through everything in between. And she acknowledges adding a few M dashes too, thanks to Dickinson, the original M dash obsessive. Mallory's obsessions that pop up in her work are different, including memory, art, aging, and loss. They are drivers of her lyrical narratives, and I'm excited to now ask you to welcome Mallory.
Hi, I'm Mallory Tinnirello, and I'll be reading some poems from my thesis tonight. I'll be starting off with two ekphrastic poems that are inspired by artwork. Behind the scenes of the Uffizi Gallery, after Sandro Botticelli's The Birth of Venus. Spring's rose-colored quilt is lifted, Venus's sternum revealed. She arises out of ocean ripples, ushered by fizzing foam, bare feet slipping on ridges of scalloped shell. Even the tallest laurel trees offer blossoms to wind and sea, eager to be framed next to her lustrous hair and body, golden as a rose's pistil. The tourists clutch cameras as Venus conceals her crotch. She forms a shield around her vulnerable breastbone, failing to defend her vision from vibrant spots of light taunting her sapphire eyes. A celebrity swarmed by paparazzi, blinded by flash photography, goddess of beauty alters her gaze. I should also say that I handed out when you were walking in a zine and a vispo that's filled with some images that are inspired by my poems because I wanted to provide some visuals. Attitude Derriere, after Keith Wallace Smith's Dream Dancer, a ceramic sculpture. The ballerina pulls the strings, demanding my devotion with elegant movements that hook my eyelids. I become her puppet. Her heels lift off my skin, raising to releve. I remain motionless, her stage. The platform of her point shoe digs into my chin, its block disguised with satin. Her back leg arches behind her body, surpassing her skull in curved hands. She borrows the base of my neck to land a pirouette, performing piqué turns over my torso, pricking my chest hair with a nimble tiptoe. A surge of applause blocks my ears, another audience offering a standing ovation. I watch her grand jeté down my leg, departing with a leap. Swan Song. For two mute swans with synchronized souls, how futile are words. Two cygnets, born with eidetic memory, bowed their heads at first glance. Thousands of feathers, envied by pearls, perk up as swan necks extend to take flight. Two pairs of wings vibrate in harmony, gliding across infinite cerulean, glancing down at reflections beside mounds of cumulus clouds. Until mate for life does not return to nest, a piercing trill announces his denouement. Lonely widow wails, the first melancholy warble her ultimate gesture. Overture and finale become one song. With a swift bow, life surpasses its crescendo. Memory hoarder. I mourned the photographs once they were permanently erased, failed by mandatory software update. I mourned youth dances attended with mourned middle school friendships. I mourned the braces, mourned those pink and green brackets, bonded to meandering teeth. Flashes of childhood never recovered, only overwritten by new information. My first flight to Italy, confetti crowding camera lens at hours of concerts, still life glimpses of sunsets in evening routine. I preserved the duplicates, incapable of evicting them from their folders, in debt to storage, dreading my device's approaching update. Pixels are now liabilities, stacking up like unpaid bills, thousands of items waiting to upload. Clinging to recollection, a hideaway from present day, I almost neglect to take new pictures. Don't ask me how many pictures I have in my camera roll right now. Nanny's and Papa's house. The mantle is barren now. Gardens beyond spring gate painting is retired to the nursing home. Boxes of their belongings clutter emerald living room carpet, where this year's Christmas presents would have been unwrapped. A miniature village of ceramics, populating the windowsill during holidays, is being evenly divided among my aunt and mother. Gazebo roofed with snow-covered shingles, to my mother. Two-story house with a wraparound balcony, to my aunt. Golden carousel with floating horses, to my mother. Frozen pond for children to skate on, to my aunt. Then mother, then aunt, then mother, then aunt. The basement is vacant. No more running downstairs with cousins to play with candy, our nickname for Papa's cane, who remains by his side since his knees struck ice. Saloon doors securing the kitchen no longer swing open. All recipes have leaked from Nanny's memory. The dining room table, legs thin and splitting, is transferred to the storage unit, rented with a check my mother signed, all of their names packed in the left corner. I finally notice gray wisps, like silver threads of tinsel that dangle from the Christmas tree, making themselves at home in my mother's hair, jet black, neatly stacked in the back. This next poem goes along with the previous one, and it also is the typed out version of the Vispo you have in front of you with the images on it. I used blackout poetry to put it together, but it starts off with a letter from my nanny and papa. We are still hanging in space and speeding through the universe. Just be happy and enjoy life and keep that pretty smile. And know that your nanny and papa loved you and will always love you. Love always, nanny and papa. Over and over. Days ran among us, gathered in this house, and would, sitting upright, talk of how we grew. One of them would settle to the floor. Life became the flavor of a strange outstretched memory, that odd lick accompanying age. Along with some ekphrastic poems, all of those poems, I've also been working on experimental elegies. And the first one I'm going to read here is unfortunately very relevant in today's society. This poem focuses on two stories of two shootings that happened just outside of college campuses. The first one is about someone that I went to high school with, and I knew a little bit, and she unfortunately passed away. You'll see a picture of her in the zine you have, but this one's for Maya. Another night out in the college town. Akron, Ohio, September 19th, 2021. Maya McFetteridge, 18, dead on arrival. I reapply scarlet soaked lipstick, her jaw permanently sewn shut, strings threaded through the septum. I wonder if her mother also wrinkled her nose at the bull ring that dangled from her only daughter's nostrils, before one stray bullet, fired into a crowd of party guests, put her chest to rest. 144.4 miles away at 11:45 p.m., gunshots disrupt silent downtown Bowling Green. Sirens shriek over the buzz of student chatter that blocks North Main, triggering relentless internet searches for a new victim's name, fearing another recognition. Bowling Green, Ohio, October 2nd, 2021. Dalen Morris, 21, gunshot wound to the leg. Shot glasses are filled. Bartender's last call, unaffected by the man lying in the parking lot, unable to walk. Yellow and black caution tape disregarded as Halloween decorations by stumbling undergrads. Surrendering to the crowd, we gulp down liquid invincibility. Tequila seals my fate for the night. I swallow the sunrise. More alcohol is poured, justice on hold. September 19th, 2022. Dear Maya, a year later and no breaks in your case. Your name shouldn't have evaded the papers. Trembling footage of men in white t-shirts, two intruders hungry for a fight, shouldn't have gone unidentified. The $50,000 reward should have cleansed any witness's conscience. You should be a college sophomore, losing sleep over art projects. The prime suspects should be confined to a jail cell, but your body decays underground. You'll never pop a champagne cork in celebration of your 21st birthday. You'll never watch the foam fizz at your college graduation. The flute you should take your first sip from will never meet your lips. You never even tasted 19. You should be attending off-campus gatherings, unconcerned with becoming an unintended target. We should be students, unafraid of becoming a statistic. This next poem is a ritual poem, which is fun because you get to give people commands and tell them what to do. So it's a fun prompt if you're ever looking for one. It's also going to be published in the fall 2022 version of Prairie Margins, our undergraduate journal here at BG. How to host your father's next birthday party. Set the kitchen table for extended family. Leave the empty corner seat where the guest of honor used to feast. Maybe next year, mother will invite a date of her own. No, really, Mom, it's okay to move on. Blow out the candles that top his cake. After all, you are his offspring. Take a guess at what his wish would be. Try to ignore Grandma stepping outside to make her own wish from the lit end of a Camel Turkish Gold cigarette. Now don't feel so guilty, not in front of guests. This is no pity party. Encourage adults to unwrap his presents, to exchange stories of the man he was. Smile and nod. When your big sister brings his old video camera out, make sure to laugh at appropriate moments, like during videos she snuck of his rattling snores. Pretend you were old enough to remember anything but yelling, "Wake up!" at the man sleeping soundlessly before his burial. Elegy to Aloe Plant. Cleopatra wept, her tears flooding your dehydrated soil. Placing gel in her petite palm, you executed the role of her emollient. Salicylic acid smoothed into the goddess's suave skin, until you choked on nutrients essential to your own growth. Drops of water solidified your downfall. Reliving the death of her precious palace, sunken under tidal waves and Alexandria's earthquakes, Cleopatra dipped her hairpin in poison. Tears overflowed cracks in her cuticles as she applied an ointment lethal to her own beauty. Her withering carcass shriveled next to your speckled freckles. Your succulent leaves, once elongated like a crown, now droop with the wrinkles tugging on her cheeks. Egypt mourns an era of vitality. Ugly grief. At my grandmother's funeral, a family friend joked how I looked like my father in drag. You should have been there, Dad. You shouldn't be dead. After that, I kept seeing your face in mirrors, but even a new pair of glasses couldn't modify our abundant dark hair and brown eyes, our olive skin that labels me the only cousin who can pass as Italian. Before I knew, I once pointed to a pamphlet that taught how to cope with losing a loved one to suicide. I looked my mother dead in the eye. That must be the hardest kind of grief to deal with. I wish you walked right into work and quit your job on the spot instead of thinking you failed to provide for us. I wish you knew a steady income was never worth this outcome. I wish you left us behind to start a new life instead of stepping off a ledge in search of the end. I wish you regularly attended therapy. I wish pills and booze clogged your autopsy. I wish you picked any other date but a week exactly before my second birthday. I wish you left a note. I wish you were pushed by something other than your brain reverting to autopilot, a split-second decision with permanent consequences. Your oldest daughter still refers to you as Daddy, your parental role unmoving through time, but she's no longer a child, and neither am I. I have one more poem for you tonight, and it might make you a bit hungry, so I apologize for that in advance, but it is called Fruitful. As a child, I never traveled to the fertile orchards of Wenatchee, Washington, our fridge already called the apple capital of the world. Bananas crowded the kitchen counter, green grapes placed in school lunches were taken for granted. Mom diced apples into cubes to mix with lettuce and dressing. From my bedroom, I heard her fork scrape the plate at the deserted dinner table. I craved purple plums by the poolside to dig my spoon into the fuzzy cover of a kiwi. Seasonal fruit entices me through automatic sliding glass doors of grocery stores. Unprepared for produce prices, the crisper drawer in my own refrigerator is vacant. Like Persephone, I still desire to savor sweet, tart pomegranate seeds, swatting at fruit flies swarming spoiled bananas. When Mom visits, she provides hand-picked Honeycrisp apples and plums when possible. Thank you.
Our reading ends tonight with John, who I think is terrified of what I'm going to say. But John is from Woodhaven, Michigan, and last night in Woodhaven, there was a youth group meeting at the Dearborn Evangelical Convent Church. And tonight, downtown, there's an after business hours event with an open bar. It's a cool place. But we're missing those. But there is some drinking of red wine in John's story. And John is my strictly prose writer, but I'll tell you, there is poetry in there. John has the lyrical qualities in his work. He strings sentences together with urgency and even uses the em dash throughout for thoughtful pause. John describes his writing as work that blends the techniques of video game narratives and traditional storytelling together to bring unique ways of foreshadowing character development and story structure. John's work is a world of magic, a world where we meet characters that come and go with light and dark, where time bends and women rule. John's story tonight is one where there will be transformations and attempts to change once inevitable outcomes. Please welcome John.
Thank you, Jessica, for that amazing introduction. Yes, I was terrified the entire time of what she was going to say. The story that I will be reading for you tonight is the first of a short story collection within the fantasy world that I am building. And the working title for the collection is The Court of Power. And the story is called Drowned in Darkness. A pleased, reminiscing smile runs across the trickster's narrow face, his bleached teeth reflecting gilding rays back towards the cloudless sky. A yellow waistcoat with a green stain lay next to him, shading the cadmium grass as he stares at the sun above the large field, west of the elven capital city. He believes that the open green is calm and refreshing. The brushing of each individual blade of grass tethers him to that natural world. The grass has a purpose, to live free and cascade across the land, building a natural landscape for all to enjoy. He wishes to have a purpose. For generations, he has voyaged across all continents. Before his eagle eyes, the elves developed society. Under the mountain, dwarves built vast forges that have tanned his skin. He has seen humanity develop war and conquest in which he manipulated people into bloodshed. Witnessing these events have not given him purpose, just an observational role in creation. He has used his time to play tricks on people who are foolhardy enough to fall into his schemes. Yesterday, he learned of a cellar full of wines for the elven royals. He couldn't just let it go. He enjoyed wine, red wine specifically. He drank and drank until he could no longer see straight. This angered the royals, who wanted him dead for consuming their expensive collection. Not being able to talk honestly, he couldn't defend himself against the guards. He was thrown in jail, which wasn't the first time, but he had time to think about how he would escape. He felt it rather enjoyable to see how this played out. Consuming wine is a petty crime in his book, but the elves were not pleased. He was sentenced to death, a small trial where the judge was paid off to ensure he was adequately disposed of. Taken outside the city limits, 2 guards escorted him into an open field where there could be no witnesses to their actions. He had time to sober up, but still had no clue what he would do to get out of that situation. His mind wandered, thinking about monsters and creatures of this world that hold a vaguely humanoid shape for him to morph into. What is a terrifying creature that has fear and gore? What can make the hearts of elves stop beating? Then another thought. The trickster's long, slender body began to sag. The soldier struggled to carry his weight and shared a concerned look with each other. The trickster started to make noises of pain and suffering. All the while, he hung his head low. He could sense the soldiers walking slower. Unexpectedly, they dropped the prisoner to the ground. He let out a gasp. He struggled to take a breath as his chest cavity was frozen with pain. He looked up at the 2 elves who drew their swords, reflecting his narrow face, crooked nose, and messy brown hair. For the first time that day, his eyes looked up at the sky and saw the open blue, the white wisps vacant. A sunbeam reflected off the sword pointed at his face. The trickster takes a moment on the ground and assumed a new shape. His body was no longer visible but foggy. Hazel eyes transformed to glowing white, while fingers became translucent and wispy, leaving behind smog with each movement. As his body transformed into this afterlife creature, he made agonizing noises, sharp, loud screams, and a twitching body. The men, too stunned to move, shook in place. His jaw grew long and became more visible, decomposing into a skeletal figure of a wraith. As the two soldiers put their shoulders together in an attempt to stand against the creature of the dead, they pointed their sharp swords at the trickster. He rose, like out of a grave, towered high above them, casting a mist along the ground. He summoned a strong wind. It galloped from the east, pulling the clouds of mist around the trickster's body, tugged him away from the two soldiers, who were left speechless. Following his great escape, the trickster stopped casting wings, which carried him to the western reaches of the Elven Kingdom. He saw the capital tower stretching its points, tearing the sky, but nothing else in sight. He was alone once more, unoccupied by any city life, nature life, and in the pureness of the open field. Taking off the waistcoat, he noticed a green stain on the jacket. Disgusted by the blemish, he cast it aside and contemplated life once more. Now, a small field mouse crawls up to the trickster's leg. It sniffs around, attempting to find food or somewhere to sleep tonight. The trickster speaks to the mouse. He asks, "Could it be just tricks?" He pauses for a moment. "What point do I have in living? Does my life have any meaning? A soldier protects his home from invaders. A farmer grows food to protect and feed the soldiers. But a wanderer? A trickster? What do they do?" His voice trickles off, moving towards a whisper until he is left with thoughts and the setting sun. Moments pass into hours as stars above him shine, and a large celestial object cascades from the horizon to the sky above. A day all night, a gentle cold that could be heated with a small top layer, like a waistcoat or jacket. He places his hand where he put his coat and touches the grass. Without looking, he moves his hand around the field, feeling blade after blade of darkened green grass. The coat that was next to him is no longer there. The trickster touches his chest, checking to see if he had put it on without realizing it. But no, only has a white button-up shirt, no waistcoat. Moving his head around, his eyes scan the area. He doesn't see any yellow coats dancing in the wind. It wouldn't be the first time. Thinking to himself, he can't recall anyone who could have snuck up on him to steal something of his. A field mouse couldn't just take it away. No mouse, no bird could have mistaken a bright yellow piece of fabric for food, right? No one would try to pull a prank on him, lest he start a war. Again. The trickster closes his eyes and pictures the yellow waistcoat. He remembers seeing it for the first time in the shop. It was the first thing he honestly earned by working in this world. He liked the stitching, the way the buttons slipped through the loops, and the feel of cotton when he brushed it. Because he travels around, this was one of the few objects he has. Nothing stays constant. But this waistcoat is that constant in his life. Standing up to look for the missing waistcoat, he starts to walk further west. However, his foot doesn't find the ground. It finds a hole that leads him downwards, falling into a dark chasm with no bottom and no top, no left or right, just the feeling of falling. The wind brushing against his brown hair, the sound of the same wind pushing itself through his ears. For the trickster, falling into an endless pit was a new feeling. He is stuck falling and falling and falling, no end slowing down, just the finality of the free fall. His eyes can't focus on anything but black. He takes a deep breath, closes his eyes, feels everything around him, the wind, the cold, his magic, gone. He can't feel the mystical energies running through his body, flowing outward from his fingertips. He opens his eyes and sees a familiar-looking yellow waistcoat hovering in front of him. Arching an eyebrow, he reaches outward to touch the coat. He suddenly finds himself slamming into a floor he could not see. His chest once more smashes against the surface, pushing all air out of his lungs. Gasping for breath, the trickster reaches outward and claws at the surface. His fingers forcibly dig into the void as he tries to lift himself up. The taste of golden ichor, the lifeblood of the elders, consumes his mouth with an intense concentration of iron. His head aches on the right side, where he fell, but no open wound. Eventually, with great strength of will, he rolls himself up onto his back to give his chest room to pump air into his lungs, to release the pressure that built up and allow himself to further engage with the surrounding area of nothing. As the trickster looks around, he cannot see anything. Even after moments, his eyes fail to adjust to the nebulous room. But this isn't a standard room. The abyss claims all light that dares enter the room. The yellow waistcoat, once a bright, brilliant hue, now fades into flaxen. Pushing out words, he speaks into the dark. Who dares? He gasps, then lets out a cough. Who dares put me in this world? I promise your life will be spared if you show me how to do this. With another great push of physical strength, he raises his torso upward to now sit in the room. Hello? An echo in his ears. He reaches for his coat and puts it on to help with the sudden drop in temperature. If you don't reveal yourself, I will start to make a scene. He starts to taunt, but he fails to even cast a simple spell. His magic has been diffused in this reality, making the pain in his chest endure as he fails to heal himself. Across the vacuum surrounding the trickster, a woman's voice comes clear and smooth. You will do your best to avoid conjuring your magic in my realm. You might think yourself clever, but you have not come against me before. Now bow. The rooms shake as her command is pronounced. Do you have any idea who I am? The trickster says, pulling the flaps of his coat forcefully. I will tell you this, no mere trick will frighten me. Show yourself, witch. He stamps his foot, calling down his demand against hers. The darkness begins to shift around the trickster. He turns his foot to gain a better balance. His head is pounding, but he puts up a fight against this voice in the dark. A piece of darkness comes rushing at him, and the trickster raises his hand to form a protective barrier. At the last moment, he remembered his magic had been negated and is hit with the darkness. He falls backward, and his head smashes back against the floor, and his waistcoat's buttons fly off the jacket, exposing his white shirt once more. The trickster's power is failing him. His magic is gone, and his words are the only weapon he has left against this mysterious being. Struggling to speak out, he finally says, Who are you? I am what bore the dark. I am mother to magic, war, and knowledge. I am the queen of night. A confident voice speaks all around him. The energy releases itself, allowing the trickster to regain his freedom of movement. Yet, you deliberately expunge your name from your introduction. Why hide in the shadows? He pauses for a moment, his mouth widens to a jesting smile. My queen. He offers a slight bow at the waist and a small head tilted into the unknown. Names hold power, and I do not flaunt my own around like you do, so recklessly. Why do you pursue a life amongst these mortals? Are you not higher than them? The woman speaks softly. A queen still marks power and superiority over others. My name holds power, sort of. People tend to want a magic show, but you have no right to judge it. You cannot be queen of night. There is... His voice starts to taper off. A slow realization hits. You are not the queen, but goddess of night, and a primordial being. The trickster, who stood tall against his adversary, falls to a slouch. His arms become crossed, closing himself off. The cold runs down his back, through his legs, until it fades, along with any sense of power he thought he had. Yes, you are correct. I would be considered a primordial being, one of the first of the elder race, and greater than any of the other elders, as I am a progenitor. You would do your best to listen to what I say. Her tone changes into calmness, almost friendly. I require you in my plan. You have abilities that are rare to find in this world, and you have the most to gain. The trickster's mouth is dry, and his words cannot escape. He has to push them out to proceed in the conversation. You need me? Why? You have already demonstrated your power against me. What use can I provide to you? A just question. I would have you seek trickery in the court of power. The court of power? I've never heard of that. The court of trickery? Yes, but never one of power. The trickster's thoughts race to determine what the court of power is. He participated in the court of trickery, which was formed to increase the strength of trickery and its potential. His cheap magic grew exponentially, culminating in a great fire that spread through the plains, causing the world to go into a famine. Accidentally. The court of trickery was formed to see what would happen. Nothing was proven other than an increase in power. What would I gain from this court of power? Another just question. This is a unique court. The court of power is a merging of all courts, joining the court of trickery with the other courts. It is the ultimate weapon I can use to fight against those who have wronged me. Wronged you? The trickster's curiosity piqued at her words. Who has wronged the mighty queen of night? None is worthy of challenging you. His curiosity quickly changed to boasting. Don't be fooled. None have challenged me directly. A group of mortals has taken it upon themselves to kill my beloved daughter, Jinx. What? A sudden burst of his voice comes clear into the abyss. I'm sorry, my queen, but Jinx is not dead. He stops himself. He can't just speak of how Jinx hired him to distract 3 heroes, then crossed her to save them because he thought they were fun to mess with. Her rage was unbridled, causing Trickster to flee away from her. But that was just weeks ago. What happened in a matter of weeks? You just what? Her voice came slowly, crawling towards him like a snake eyeing its prey in the grass. I just saw her a few weeks ago, and I wasn't aware of her death. I am sorry for your loss. I cannot begin to understand your pain as a grieving mother. She was a good, no, great friend. Trickster bows his head in solace. Indeed, you did see her, but you are mistaken. Today, in this time, Jinx is still alive and well. What happened to her? Is something going to happen? He begins to think about this. Are you from the future? Did you break time? Moan of silence lingers, growing heavier as the seconds tick away. She says, I did not break time. As it stands, I am allowed to walk the passage of time to form the court of power. I can use my time to select individuals who I have deemed worthy enough to join the court and act as I please. When the moment of my daughter's death does happen, you will all be ready. What purpose would I serve? I don't have one. Sincerity enters his voice. You have one, Trickster. Your purpose lies in the court of power, and this is what fate has done for you. After your patience, I have conscripted you for your talents of trickery, your cunning, your intelligence. Together, we shall bring down those who killed Jinx. What must I do now, my queen? For now, you must keep an eye on this world. Stay close to the world of mortals, and do not speak of this until I summon you. Her demands are precise and spoken from the shadows. How will I know when you summon me? You will know when the eternal night has been cast, wanderer. She left this world without a trace she was even in it, and the Trickster is left alone. His last thought was how he would escape this place without magic. Thank you, everyone.
That's all. We'll see you next semester. The spring schedule is active.